Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're going to this Ketubot stop Nun Aleph. We're going to begin on the top of Nun Aleph, Amud Aleph, the second line. Hahu Yasam v'Yasayma. So we have the story of a Yasam and Yasayma, these orphans. And Rashi says, Ach v'achais, brother and sister, v'nich sehem biyad apitrapus. So the possessions that was entitled to them was in the hand of a guardian. So diasa kamei the Rabbi. So Amaluhu Rabbi halu liyasam b'shel yasayma. So he said we should provide for the yasam in order for the sake of the yasayma. Says Rashi, ha'alu yasam mezainis yaserim, give the yasam extra food shetizain achaisu imo. In this way, his sister will also be able to get mezainis. So Amilu Rabbanul Rabba v'hamarhu the Amr mikar koibu metal tuli benul mezaini benul ksu benul parnasa. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Now, when it comes to the daughter receiving mizonos, it should only be taken from karka, because it's linked to the ksuba, but not from a taltalin. So, mahu ilu ratza shivcha l'shamshay milu yavinin le. So, if in fact there would be a shivcha, a maidservant to serve, would milu yavinin le, I'd pay for it. So koshken hacha de ikatarti, certainly here that there is two. Now, what does that mean? So first of all, your sister is helping you, which without her, you need to pay this amount for the housekeeper. So therefore, because of that, you should give her this as well. Rashi says, the ikatarti achoso u tashmashenu. First of all, she's your sister. And in addition to that, again, you should be providing for her, because otherwise you would be paying for the services anyway. Now this actually says it doesn't matter if we're talking about karka or even metaltlin, which is nechasim shein lehem achrayos, that even in that situation, moitzin l'mazin isha, we will take out, even for mizonos or parnasa, for the daughter, for the wife, as well as for the daughter. Again, if the situation where the husband dies, so even though it's questionable, according to this opinion, we say no, you can even collect from metaltlin. Diri Rabbi. Shimon Lezer Armino, Nechasim Shesham Achrayis. If it's karka, you're right, Motzin Labanais, then we do give for the daughters, min habanim from the sons, Labanais min habanais, as well as daughters from daughters. So what does that mean? Says Rashi, "L'katnois min hagadolos im ein sham el banais." Let's say all there are daughters. De'achziku gadolos b'nechasim moitzin miyadam. So let's say the older daughter grabbed more than her share, so we can take it from her hands. B'cholkos b'shava, in order that it should be divided equally. Says Rashi, "V'hacha leikum zaini shein habanas nezainis min habanais lefi shekon shavos birusha." Over here, because there's daughters and only daughters in this equation, so it's not mazon, it's just that they should divide up the Yerusha in general, whether there's a lot or a little. So when it comes to this, according to Rav Shimon ben Elazar, he says that you can be mitzi banos min habanim, banos min habanos, as well as l'banim min habanim, sons from sons, l'banim min habanos, min merubin, of a low banim min habanis min chasim watin. So he says, when it's the chasim reuben, when there's a lot of monies, then that's when we say that. Of a low banim min habanis min chasim watim. Sons cannot take from daughters if it's the chasim watim, because the chasim watim, we say that the boys don't get a Yerusha at all. Everything goes to the daughters, because the daughters need the mazonos. So first, the girls get the mazonos. That's the case of nechasim watim. If there's more, then of course, then the boys also get Yerusha. Nechasim she'enam achrayis. When it comes to metaltlin, moitzim lobanim min abanim, lobanos min abanis. So we will take again away sons from sons, daughters from sons, lobanim min habanis, and sons from sons, of a low labanis min habanim. But daughters cannot take from sons, because when it comes to metaltalin, they're not. We don't give them mizonos from metaltalin. Afgad kaimon halacha krebim mechaveroi hachalacha kreb shimon melazar. Dear Rabbi, hilchasam mekarkoi below metaltali ben luksub ben lumazayni ben parnasa. So this is what we're saying halacha. Therefore, because of that, the banos only have the right to take from banim if in the event that the banim, the sons, took more than their chelik and really want to have it divided properly. But if all they did was take metaltalin, so mazonos is not linked to metaltalin; it's only linked to karka, and therefore, because of that, they don't get from that. Next Mishnah: Lo kasav l'ksuva besul goy b'masayim v'almana. It doesn't make any difference, and for whatever reason, there's no ksuva to be found. It was not written. So you say, okay, I don't have to give my wife any money. No, you still have the same chiyuvim. You have to give the ikr ksuba of 200 for a basula and 100 for an almana. Why? This is the condition that was stipulated by Beis Din, that this is what always happens. So it doesn't matter even if there's no ksuba, the Beis Din already has that ruling. So let's say you did write that she's able to collect this land, but the land is only worth 100, and she's a basula, she's entitled to 200. And you didn't say all my other possessions are connected to the ksuba. It doesn't matter. Again, even though you're giving her something, it's not enough. You have to actually give her 200. So even if it wasn't stipulated as such, she would get the 100 from the field that you designated, but also the additional 100 because your other nechasim are also achroi because of Tanai Beis Din. Furthermore, says the Mishnah, lo kasavla, if you did not write on the ksuba the following: im tishtaboi, that if you get captured, ef rekinech, then I will redeem you. Voisvinech li leintui, and you'll come back to me as my wife because you're in Israel. Even if she was violated, ba'oinus, she can go back to you. With a kohenes, if you're marrying kohenes, it would normally be written, which he didn't write, hadrinich labdina sech, that I will pay for your plane ticket, basically to go back to your country. Because unfortunately, when it comes to a kohen, even ba'oinus, this girl, this woman, the Ashes Kayan, even ba'oinus is going to be usher to him. Now it doesn't matter. No matter what, even in the right that you're going to redeem her, you still have to. That's one of the conditions. Nishbis, if she's captured, chayav lifdaisa, you have to redeem her. Ve'im amar harigita v'ksubasa v'tifta es atzma in rashai. If a person says, "Oh, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a ksuba, again the ksuba, and you can redeem yourself," that you're not allowed to do. Why? Because she was already in captivity. This is Rashi, Shikvar Nischayev B'Pidyaina Mishnishbis. From the moment that she was in captivity, you're already obligated to redeem her. So you can't then, since you already have this obligation on you, you can't give her a get and say, okay, well now you can do it yourself, because you already had that obligation on you. Giving a get's not going to release you. But for some reason, let's say she gets sick, so we know that you have to heal your wife. Omar Hari Gita Ksubasa Terapias Atzmer. In this situation, even though you would maybe can say it would be the same thing, we'll have to understand this, why we're machalik, but over here, if she's sick and you say, you know what, I'm going to give you your get and ksuba, you can heal yourself, that you are allowed to do. And all Rashi says here is Shein Adam Chayv Lozen Grushasai, because you don't have to give food to the woman that you've divorced. Okay, I have to understand it a little bit better. So Mani, who is the author of our Mishnah? Ramerhi Diyomer Kol HaPoiches Lebesul Memasayim Mimana Harizu Be'ilas Nus, that if a person would give less or stipulate less than the required amount, the bia that you have with her is bias nus. Di Rabbi Yehuda ha'oimer ratza kaisa lebsula shtar shel masayim. You could write for your wife a basula that the star is 200. Vihi koseves, and she can write his kabalti mimcha mana. I'll accept from you 100, as a Rashi says, lashon shoiver, as a receipt. V'afilu niskabla, even if she actually didn't accept it, it doesn't make any difference. O mana mana. Vihi koseves his kabalti mimcha chamishim zuz. So she can even say, I was makabel less, and that would have been enough. Even if she didn't even collect it, it would still be good. So Ema Sefer, let's say he writes $100 land, Tachas Masayim Zuz, he doesn't say that all of the Nechasim are connected to the Ksuba. Chayiv, he still has to pay for the rest, Shu Tanai Bastin. So Atan Rabbi Huda, that's not like Rameir, because Rabbi Huda, the Amar Achrayas Tais Seferhu. He holds that Achrayas is Tais Sefer. Says Rashi, the Amar Shtar Shal Nichta Ba Achrayas. If you have a star which doesn't mention it, Lo Midas Hamalva Nasa, El Sefer Ta. We say that the scribe made a mistake. Varihu Kami Shenichtab was like it was really written, but Tarif Min HaMishubadim. And therefore you could actually collect. So that's like the sheet of Rabbi Huda, that even though it's not written that on the star, this ksuba, that all of his possessions, all of his nechasim are achroi, it doesn't make any difference. He still has to collect. It's still the case, even though it's not written achrayis. It's just called achrayis tois sefer. Now the ira meir ha'omer achrayis lav tois sefer who. We're going to see that actually he holds an achrayis as not a tois sefer, which means it actually has some validity, that you may not have this obligation. How do we see that? Dinan Matzah Shtari Chayiv. Let's say you found this document which says that monies are owed. So as we continue, Nun Aleph Amud Beis, Im Yesh Bahen Achrayis Nechasim. If the document mentions that there is some type of obligation, Lo Yachzer. So in that situation, we don't want you to just return it. Shebeis in Nifrayim Mehen, because the Beis Din will collect based on that document. It says Rashi, Yesh Behen Achrayas Nechasim, Afilu Haloivim Moideshu Chayvlo. Even if the borrower says, yes, you're right, I can't believe you found the document. Yeah, I do owe this money. Umeforish Hasam, it's explained over there, Dechayshinan Shem Apiro, maybe the loiva actually did pay. Umin haloiva nafal, and it fell from the borrower's hands. V'zeshu maida, and the reason why he's saying, oh yeah, I owe this money, atzas knunyahi beinehem. Perhaps it's some type of a plot. The loiva and the malva are engaged in some scheme, and basically what will end up happening is they'll say, okay, so we can get this land, and then once it's captured, this land, they'll divide the land in half. So it's a knunya. It's something which we're concerned that when it comes to nechasim, a star which has a achrayas attached to it, so then we don't want to give it back because we're concerned of this type of ploy. However, that's only when it comes if it's written that way. Ein ben achrayas nechasim yachzer. If there's no achrayas nechasim, you could give it back. Shin beis nefrayin mehen. Divri Rameir. So Rameir holds exactly what we're saying, that if it does not mention on the star that there's achrayas, so then there is none. So which is clearly not like the Sefer of our Mishnah. Because according to that opinion, the Chachamim hold that's achrayas is Tais Sefer. So Reish Rameir v'Sefer Rabbi Yehuda, the Chitei Makul Rameir, he maybe not just the Sefer, but also the Reisha is like Rameir. The problem is, Rameir, we just said before, holds that anything less than the Mosayim is considered to be a Bilas Nus. So it doesn't sound like our Mishnah. So maybe actually the Reisha is also like Rameir. The Shani Le Rameir being Ksuva L'Shtare. And he makes a distinction between a Ksuva and a Shtar. Says Rashi, the biksuva isle achrayas tais seferhu, or as it says on the side, v'afagad the mishtari amrinan lav tais seferhu. Even though when it comes to a star, Rameir holds that achrayas is lav is not a tais sefer. When it comes to a ksuva, he's moide. Why? And he says on the side over here in the Masas Shas, the Tanai Bastin who. So maybe because a ksuba is connected to the Bastin, so therefore that's why we say it is considered achrayas, regardless if it's written that way or not. So therefore, again, if there was nothing written about giving them monies, it's still given to them. But does he really make a distinction? There are 5 that can collect from available properties, namely things which are not from nechasim mishubadim. There's still 5 instances. Ve'eluhain peros, namely the fruits, ushvach peros, and the profits that come forth from it. So look at Rashi. So it's brought down in Masechtas Gittin, ein moitzin lachilos peros l'shvach karkais menuchasim mishubadim. So you cannot collect from fruits or the profits from land, tikkun oilam, because of tikkun oilam, because the person can buy a piece of property and all of a sudden you're going to have to start collecting from that too. That's something which is almost unexpected. Shvach karkais, Rashi says, Ketzad, Harshe Guzzle son of a chavero, a person stole a field from his friend, umachor la'acher, and that someone else bought it from him, bishvicha, and he improved the land. So in that case, skipping just to the end of this Rashi, goyva keren, the principal, that which was stolen, can be collected nechas mishubadim. However, ushvach, but the gain of this land, menechas menechayrin, only from menechayrin money, from free money, is lo mina mishubadim. And they take an oilam, levi she'ein ketsuvin, the ein halokech yodea bekal malihi zaher. So there's no set amount, and it's hard to make a determination. And it could, and if you could collect from mishubadim, no one would ever buy such a land because it's something which there's no end to it. So therefore, it's not collected from the chasim mishubadim, but from the chayrin. And then the Gemara continues, also the makabel of lozain as ben ishto or bas ishto. If a person accepts upon himself to give mizonos to his wife's son or to his wife's daughter. So also in that case, we do not collect from, based on his promise, from the chas mishubadim, because again, Rashi says, Lefi she'ein ketsuvin, because this is something which is also not a set amount. And therefore, you can't collect from the chas mishubadim. 4th, beget chayiv, and also a document of debt, she'ein bo achrayas. If there's no achrayas on it, so then you're not allowed to collect from nechas mishubadim, which again, it sounds very clear that he's of the opinion that when it comes to a regular shtar, the din is that achrayas is lav taiferhu. But here's the key: uksuvas isha she'in b'achrayas. It's the same thing. He does not make any distinction, even though ksuba is a tenai based in, it doesn't matter. If there's no achrayas on it, then you cannot collect from the chas mishubadim. So man shom in the lady amar achrayas lav tayis seifrahu. That's Rameir. Look at that ksuvas isha. So he also mentions ksuvas isha. So again, you can't possibly say that it's all Rameir. So iboy same or Rameir, iboy same or bihuda, iboy same or bihuda. So the ratio makes sense. The problem is the seifa, which he holds that's according to Rabbi Yehuda. The problem is that when it talks about the seifa, and he wrote like 100 for the shtar, for the sadeh, and that she can collect the rest. So Rabbi Yehuda says achrayas is tois seifer. So again, the seifa is like Rabbi Yehuda, because atayin Rabbi Yehuda achrayas tois seiferhu. It was a mistake, and therefore she still has to collect more. However, the reisha of Rameir is is fine. The seifa of Rabbi Yehuda is fine. We can't say that the whole thing is like Rameir. The reisha makes sense, but the seifa can't be, because according to Rameir, he holds that achrayas is lav tois seifer, and it doesn't make any difference by shtar or by ksuba. So now we're saying, well, maybe the whole thing is like Rabbi Yehuda. The seifa is definitely like him, but the Reisha is a question, because Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't even have to give the whole 200. It's not a big deal. She can just say, yeah, I collected it, when the truth is, it sounds like you still have to give to her. So, like this. Hasam kasvale hiskabalti. Hachalo kasvale hiskabalti. Very simple. If she says hiskabalti, so then that's it. It's based on her words. So therefore, even if she didn't get it, so the din is, then that's it. She gets whatever she got, and it doesn't have to be the 200. However, if she doesn't say it, then it's necessary. It must be completely given. It doesn't mean that you collect from land. It means you collect from free properties. Okay. Low cost of love. So Amar Abu Shmuel, Eishes Israel Shenensa. So if you have a woman who was an Eish Israel and someone raped her, Asur Labala. This is unbelievable, because we never heard of this before. But apparently it says that she is usher to her husband. Why? So according to Abu Shmuel, because even though she was initially forced, but since of Seifa Baratzain, so the din is that she is going to be usher to her husband. So what are you talking about? We said that im tishtaboy, that if she's in captivity, she'll be redeemed, and she'll come back to me. But she's obviously, we're saying it was baratzain, and should be usher to her husband. So ishtik. So Shmuel, on him, we called upon him, sarim atzru b'milim, so that these leaders are held back with their words, and they put their palm over their mouths. So what can you maybe say? Bishvuya hekelu. Maybe you just want to say that maybe we're just makel when it comes to a shvuya, and therefore because of that, that's the reason why we may look the other way in this situation. So let's look at TA5. So the question is, Ma hatam shalavud shmuel the Eishes Yisrael shenensa shulabal, because even though it's tchila b'oinis of sefer ratzain, ma habir lefi zeh ma shekasav in the ksuba, that if she's in captivity, so that's a different situation, because we're more makel when it comes to shvuya. So maybe that's how we'll explain that. Okay, fine. V'lavud shmuel oinis d'shar rachman hechem shkachasla. So according to him, you could always say that she was b'sofer baratzain. So how do we find that a situation where she taka mutter to go back to her husband? You have witnesses that say she was screaming from beginning to end, which was clearly, there was never a moment that it was baratzain. Even though she was baratzon at the end, and she even says, leave him, she'omole loy niskakla he sochartoi, because otherwise I'd hire him muteris. My time a yetzer albisha. So what is that? Says Rashi, the gam ze oinis shebedachilus bia he b'oinis hilvisha haboyel yetzer. So she ended up having their yetzer hara, or she just realized might as well enjoy what's going on at some point. So because of that, it doesn't make any difference. Even if it was Seifa Baratzain, it doesn't matter, she's still mutter. Tani Kavas to the Rabbi. V'hilo nispasa, so if she was not forced, Asura, which means it was Baratzain completely. Mashma ha nispasa muteris. If she was completely forced, she's mutter. So it's coming to tell you that even another situation, even if it was b'sefer b'ratzon, she's still mutter. Tanidach, another way of reading it, the healing is basa asura, hanis basa muteris, v'yeshachal acher shalpapishin shenitva asura. There's actually a time that even if she was ba'onis, she would still be aser. This is Eishes Kain. As we said, an Eishes Kain is always aser. Fine. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, v'hilo nispasa asura, that if she was not forced and she did a baratzon, she's aser. Ha nispasa, she was forced, muteris. Veish lo acheres, shall be shal nispasa, even if she wasn't forced, muteris, ezazu, she kedusheha kedushe tois. If the kedushin was a kedushe tois, what does that mean? So Rashi says, al tanai, v'lo niskayim ha-tanai. Let's say there was some condition, and the condition wasn't fulfilled, so im zinsa tachtav, muteris levi she'enu ishto el panuya ba'almahi. She's not married, so it's not a problem. Shafil b'no murkav al kseifa, even if, let's say, she has a child on her shoulders, mamenes ohilechasla, because the tanai was not met, she could leave this relationship. Or maybe Huda. Hani nashi, these women, the ganvu ganave, in which people stole these women, sharin lugavraihu, they're allowed to go back to their husbands. So Amali Rabban Rabbi Huda, I v'haka mam tayin luhu nahama, they bring them bread. It seems like they actually have a very good relationship with them, and it's pretty clear that must be that they're having tashmish baratzain. Mara says no, machmas yira. They're only doing it because they're afraid of these ganavim. They'll kill them otherwise, maybe. Ibahaka mishalchanuhu gire. They provide like arrows. Again, machmas yira. They're only doing because they're afraid of them. Vade shavkinhu ba'azlan. Let's say they left and went, and avshaihu asiran, and they chose to stay even though they were sent away. Then they're certainly going to be usher, because the fact that they decided to come back, which they had the chance to escape and they didn't, so then it's clearly baratz on their usher. Tanabanan. Shivuyi malchus, when it comes to someone who's in captivity based on a king, harihain kishvuyin, it has the same din as someone who is in captivity, and therefore they're mutter to go back to their husbands, because it was not baratzain. However, genuvi listais, if let's say we're talking about bandits, einin kishvuyin. So when it comes to them, because they're not as powerful, so therefore the fact that they're sticking around with these guys, it was baratza, and therefore they'll be usher to go back to their husbands. I learned the opposite regarding malchus. They are not like shvuyin, and by genuvi listais, they are like shvuyin. So it depends. Malchus kasha, the kings, depends on what we're talking about. Haba malchus achashverosh, haba malchus ben netzer. So if we're dealing with malchus achashverosh, so they're just like those who are in captivity, because he was such a great king. Says Rashi, the yoda shlo yisena ubi losav oinus. So they really had no ability to be able to get out of it, because otherwise they would be killed or something. So therefore it was definitely ba'oinus, and therefore they have the din of a shvuyin. However, ben netzer, which is some type of a bandit, and says Rashi, listim hoya v'lached ayaros, he used to be a capturer in forests. Umelach Alehem, he was like a king over these foresty areas. The Nasaroish listim, he became like the head bandit. So on that situation, we say enim kishvuyin, and you will be usher to your husband. Rashi says the svara mintziv kanatzivla v'nivelas baratzain. So in that situation, it's possible the bia would be baratzain. Listos alistiais lo kasha haba ben netzer haba listim de alma. So again, if we're dealing with ben netzer, so then in that situation, that type of a bandit, we say is considered to be, she'll be usher to go back to her husband. However, listim ba'alma, we say will be mutter to be able to go back to her husband. Says Rashi, "Afilu kuchim shaloi kashin la lafikach enon el anusa." Uben netzer hasim karli melech lahachim karli listim. So you're answering a question about malchus, a melech and a melech, and then about bandits, and you're using the same person. In Gabi Achashverosh listimhu, compared to Achashverosh who ruled the whole world, this guy was like a bandit. He was like a nobody. Gabi listim de alma melchu, but compared to other bandits, he was like the leader of all the bandits, and therefore he was considered to be like a king over all of them. Okay, I'm going to stop here. TB6. Actually, first let me see. Question 7. V'hila nispasa asura ha nispasa muteris. V'yeshacha acher shalpa pishul nispasa muteris. Ezuhu alpha pishul nispasa muteris. So he said that the two scenarios where even in the event where she was, even though she was not captured, she can still be mutter. No, she still did. Why? It was, even though it was baratzain. So one answer is it tchilasa ba'oinis v'soiva baratzain. Alternatively, if, as we saw in Rashi, that there was a tanai and it wasn't fulfilled, so she's a panuya, so there was a kedusha, it was a kedusha tois, so then certainly it's not an issue. Okay, now let's go to, it's probably the same question, TB6. V'hi will nisbaso asura v'yeshachach hashal b'yishol nisra muteris. Ezu shal nisbaso muteris. Exact same question, same answer. Ad kan.